what does our misnometer say? It says fall and spring are the best time to perform preventative maintenance. All right. So, what do you think? Is fall
Myself,
and spring the absolute best time to perform preventative maintenance?
myself, I believed that for a long time that was the proper time to do it because I was believing it because that's what a company was telling me. Because it was able to, stay working in shoulder times when you didn't have a lot of no cooling or a lot of no heats and stuff like that. So, but then I went to work for another company and we were so busy year round and we had a lot of maintenance contracts. So a lot of times you weren't doing your maintenance on systems until June, July, when it's very, very hot or when it's really cold. So my opinion of that changed because now is actually going out and doing preventative maintenance on equipment where I could see it actually loaded up. So there's good times, it doesn't hurt to do it in the spring or fall, but it definitely doesn't hurt to see that system when it's under normal load conditions.
Right.
Because what you see under low load conditions you may not necessarily see under normal conditions.
Right. I would say particularly with inverter driven systems. We see that a lot that you can get away with something like a low charge for a big chunk of the year, depending on where you live too. If it's relatively mild climate, you can get away with it for a long time with a low charge. Customer has no idea, that it's low. They have no idea that it's leaking, that kind of thing until it does break and decides to become cold or decides to become hot. So that may
or
be something that you don't pick up on during preventive maintenance.
or it may just be until it's under high load, then the machines, which Gree does an exceptional job of with their equipment, is protecting the equipment from damage but also keeping it running even though we're not being able to get full capacity out of it. So the consumer or the tenant in that building or whatever it may not actually be getting the comfort level that they want, but the machine is not getting damaged either. And that's a prime example of one that you may not see if you were out there in the spring with under low load conditions.
Right. But
So it,
yeah, so I can definitely see that. Zeus, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Greg there, saying, it's you traditionally people are said to do it like during the off season or shoulder seasons. Uh, but I mean, honestly, you know, to really get that full, because you have load in the building, so you're gonna want to see that system run, at full capacity. And if you don't have that, like on the shoulder seasons where it's a little bit colder, and you're trying to check like the cooling cycle, well, I mean, you're gonna shut off pretty fast. So that's where you can run into issues there. And if you don't have the instruments to be able to, test the heat pump mode in heating, well, you're kind of, dead in the water, really checking the full system thoroughly.
So I mean, but in the interest of the contractors that are on here, though, I mean, we got to be fair, right? Yes, I think it's good to be able to see the equipment in loaded conditions, and that's what the consumers need to understand that it's not going to hurt them either way to have it done in the spring or the fall, or even in the prime season when it's actually under load. Because let's be real, the contractors are going to are going to go out there and do these preventive maintenance checks when the time allows. In other words, you're going to take care of people that have nothing or a system down first before you're going to be running PMs because PMs really don't make a contractor a bunch of money or anything like that. They make their money off of doing service work and repairs or
Right.
replacements. So they've got to be able to factor that into their schedules and keep their guys working full time, and that's where preventive maintenance comes into play because it gives them when that technician doesn't have another job, might be like a 4 hour job and there's not enough hours left in the day to do that, but he can go do this maintenance at the end of the day or the beginning of the day just to start the day. Okay, you got a 6 hour job plan, you go do that maintenance in the morning first. So, and I guess what I'm trying to encourage is contractors to do a better explanation to their consumer as to when they're getting their preventative maintenance done and why. So the consumer doesn't think, it's got to be in the spring or it's got to be in the fall or it's got to be in the middle of summer, it's got to be in the middle of the winter. So because that's then not only that, they got to work around holidays. Nobody wants somebody coming out and doing preventive maintenance on their HVAC system on Christmas Eve. You know, I mean, some will, but a lot of people, they're trying to cook and plan for their
Yeah.
family coming in,
Trying to
right?
get you in
So,
there and out of there as quickly as possible. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that brings up a couple points. I mean, I think one is, one step in preventive maintenance is just checking the common maintenance items like coil cleanliness or blower wheels, that kind of thing, right?
electrical connections, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Yes,
I mean, even flare connections, if that's something that you would be looking into. And if you're out there for one reason, maybe that's something that you just go ahead and add in, that kind of thing. But then on the other hand, you're also talking about like preventive maintenance contracts. And I think that's part of the reason why they have been scheduled in the slower seasons, which you know doesn't necessarily occur in spring and fall. Like as far as months go, absolutely just depends on where you live, what kind of climate you have. Some places don't really have shoulder seasons.
right.
I kind of live in one. Uh, I wouldn't really consider this to be a shoulder season right now. It could be
Not
90,
everybody lives in an
70.
easy bake oven.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I know when I moved here, a lot of the PMs were done in the dead of winter. On the commercial jobs, they might send five, six, eight people out there,
Yep.
all at once to go do those, because it's kind of used to kind of keep some of that work going. So I totally understand that. If you have a pretty good idea when you're going to start getting these no cools or no heats, if you're able to go out and perform some preventive maintenance on it, I mean, this applies to wall mount mini split just as well as it does to a whole house unit. There's definitely preventive maintenance that needs to occur. I know that we've talked about that in more than one occasion on Talk Cup for Live. Is Tech support gets pictures of the units. Like, hey, it's not cooling. I don't know what's wrong with it. We pulled the charge, we weighed it back in, all the rest of that stuff. You get a picture, and then it's caked up. It's got a bunch of junk on it, and all the rest of that. It's like, okay, you still need airflow. Still an air conditioner.
Right.
It might be inverter driven, it might have sensors and stuff in it, but it's still an air conditioner. It may not be freezing up into a solid block of ice, right? You may not get high amp draw because it's returning liquid to the compressor because it's not doing that. It's going to protect itself and try not to do that. So I mean, dirty coil doesn't always equal frozen coil. You know,
Exactly.
Airflow doesn't always end up being a frozen coil either. Especially with the with inverter driven systems.
Well, we definitely have air codes for freeze protection.
We do.
We also have air codes for high discharge temperature, which would be same as high superheat, meaning we're not getting refrigerant flow back. Could be from undercharge, could be from restriction, could be from other things. But like we just talked about, there is safety factors in there.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I can. The other thing I'll share is when I did PMs, if I felt like a system, in the shoulder season that wasn't really giving me the answers I was looking for,
Right.
or if I thought there might be an issue with it, then I would always write those up as we need a return visit when it's warm outside, right? So
Right.
or cold outside or whatever it may be, so I could see it under loaded condition. So, and then
Well,
what they would typically do, the office then would typically schedule a date, a month and a half out or whatever, when they knew it was going to be warm. And then they were that way that customer was already on the books for a recheck, So,
right. And I know too that it can be challenging selling like a preventive maintenance contract to a customer. Um, I mean, it's like an insurance policy. Even though they might have insurance policies, they may not want to buy one for a preventive maintenance. I mean, it's not really
right,
insurance, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you might be able to identify problems with it before problems actually occur. Not everybody's always a long-term thinker. Like maybe a lot of people are looking at it from a short-term. Maybe it can also be that they just maybe they can't afford to think long-term or something like that. There's always a challenge there. I think a lot of it is built around just the company and the business that's occurring at different points of the year.
well, I mean, I think we failed to mention the reason why we brought that up anyway is because of the fact that we feel like you know consumers are not understanding the importance of getting their equipment, having regular maintenance checks done on them.
Yeah,
So, and I think that's another thing that, you know, we want to try to get homeowners and stuff to understand. I mean, you change the oil in your car, you have regular maintenance done to your car. Why aren't you doing regular maintenance to your HVAC system? You should be.
right. Well, some of us are
Yeah.
better at cars too than others, right?
True.
um,
Out of sight, out of mind. That's the thing.
right.
All they
Yeah,
do is turn it on and they don't think about it because it's conditioning in their house. They
yeah.
don't think
And
about
I
the
do
fact
think
that,
preventive maintenance seems to be one of those things that's lost. Going from traditional systems to like mini splits. I just think like one of those things that just gets left behind. I mean, it's no different than something that we talk about fairly often is showing up to the job site. It's a mini split. All of a sudden, it's not saying everybody does this, but we've all done this at one point or another. You look at the unit and you immediately start thinking, oh well, this is different. So that maybe it's this. This is the problem. The other thing's different. So maybe this is the problem, and not really thinking about it as like an air conditioner. Like you still have all of this knowledge that you're bringing to it, all this experience that you're bringing to it, whether that's 5 years or 40 years, you're still bringing that everything with you. 90% of the problems are better, are typical HVAC related problems. Have nothing to do with an inverter or a thermistor or a digital controller of some kind. It's got nothing to do with that at all. It's airflow, it's refrigerant, it's
well, when I was in trade school, one
cleanliness.
of the first things they taught us was that our biggest enemy in HVAC is dirt.
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 Yeah.
From the filters getting dirty, the condensers getting dirty, whether it's a reach-in refrigerator or it's a HVAC system cooling your house. Dirt is the biggest enemy in this field, and lack of maintenance is what causes a lot of the breakdown.
Mm.
So,
James, that brings up a good point on the maintenance side of it. Like just pretty much breaking it down from a troubleshooting standpoint, just the basic stuff that you can cover in preventive maintenance. So like to avoid like nuisance calls, dirty blower, dirty condenser, just go ahead and do your preventive maintenance to the full of your ability and you should be good to go, until a actual problem comes up. You can get a lot of it during the preventive maintenance.
yep.
Right. Right.